Hello and a warm welcome. You've joined us on Market Cafe right here on ET Now. I'm Ashesha and With me is Kanishka Sarkar joining us from our Delhi studio. And lots of action on the tariff war front. US President Donald Trump is now proposing up to 200% tariff on pharma and nearly 50% tariff on copper as well. We'll try to decode all that and more over the course of the next 1 hour. But first up, let's get started with all the cues that we are getting from the global market. And Kanishka, US markets ended flat with a slight bit of negative bias yesterday, isn't it?
That's right, Ashesha. Very good morning to you, first of all. And like you said, now traders were on that guard mode in yesterday's session as Trump rolled out these new tariff updates to the policy. Now, S&P 500, that inched down about 0.07%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite, that added about 0.03%. On the other hand, we had the 30-stock Dow Jones Industrial Average, which lost nearly 0.5% in trade yesterday. Now, all of these moves are coming as Trump has said in a Truth Social post that there would be no change or extension on the raft of duties that he's announced on those nations, which include Japan and South Korea. The new tariff rates range between 25% and 40% and are set to begin on August 1st. Now, Trump is like you just mentioned, Trump has also announced 50% levy on copper imports and hinted that further sector-specific tariffs will be announced soon. He has also threatened the 200% tariff on pharmaceuticals that are imported into the US, but he has said that he will give people about a year and a half until the duties go into effect. Apart from that, all that we'll be watching out for today, the traders will be monitoring the release of FOMC minutes from his last meeting, and that's how the global setup is looking like when it comes to the Wall Street. But Ashesha, how are commodity markets reacting to all those announcements?
The most important impact will be on the copper market because of the announcement that came in from US President Donald Trump. In fact, copper futures and COMEX yesterday at one point in time rose as much as 17% before cooling off, and they ended nearly 12 to 13% higher for yesterday's trading session. On the flip side, though, copper futures on LME declined yesterday, and today also LME futures of copper are trading with a cut of nearly 1 to 1.5% as we speak. But let's talk about the oil and the gold market. And first up, oil is snapping its 2-day gaining streak. It is now sitting with a cut of nearly 0.3% as we speak, and it is trading near that $70 per barrel mark. Several news pieces for the oil market, and the most important one today morning being the rise in US inventories. Now remember, US inventories rose by about 7.1 million barrels last week. Now this is the highest that we have seen since January this year. So inventory pile up in the United States is weighing heavy on the oil market. And that is precisely the reason Brent crude is sitting with a cut of nearly 0.3% as we speak. But let's also talk about the yellow metal then. Gold is sitting with a cut of nearly 0.1%. In fact, it's absolutely flat as we speak. It's snapped that 2-day losing streak. And several news pieces over here as well. Safe haven buying, which we have seen over the last few years, now seems to be receding. As Trump has proposed 200% tariffs on pharma, that factor will continue to weigh heavy on safe haven market going forward, and that continues to impact the gold market as well. So we haven't seen much action on the yellow metal and on oil market, but copper continues to remain in focus today. Kanishka.
That's right. Lots of developments to track in the commodity market as well, especially when it comes to copper. But let's also take a look at how the D Street performed yesterday. Now, the Nifty closed above that 25,500 mark, notching its third straight session of gains, while the Sensex, that also ended higher. However, broader markets, they underperformed with both mid-cap and small-cap indices closing in the red. Now, let's go across to Snehi to get us a roundup of all the market action yesterday.
What was a largely lackluster session in yesterday's trade perked up in the last 30 minutes or so because Nifty flipped from the red to the green and closed with an uptick of about 0.2%, 100 points higher from the day's low and 60 points higher on the spot basis. So 25,520 thereabouts is where the Nifty 50 has closed for the day. A sharp uptick seen in the last few minutes of trade for Sensex as well, but overall the broader strength came from the Nifty Bank that continued to outperform the benchmarks. You also had some pressure on the broader end of the market because you had Nifty mid cap and small cap that were underperforming the benchmarks, and both have closed in the red in yesterday's trading session. If you take a look at some gainers and losers from the Nifty 50 group of stocks, you have Kotak Bank on the back of good Q1 updates coming in. That stock was higher by about 3.5%. Eternal also higher by about 2%, followed by Asian Paints, NTPC, Grasim, BEL. All of the stocks have done well from the Nifty pack. What's not done well, and the pressure continued for Titan on the back of poor than expected Q1 updates. So 6% cut, slightly more than that is what we saw on Titan, followed by Dr. Reddy's, Bajaj Auto, Cipla, Trent, Axis Bank. All of these were the biggest laggards on the Nifty 50 yesterday. Other than this, if you take a look at the broader end of the market and sectorally, more importantly, what did well was the entire realty group of stocks on the back of good set of updates coming in from Sobha. You have Macrotech as well as Phoenix. Good set of numbers coming in, good to in line. So Nifty Realty did well, followed by financial services, banks, IT and energy. These were the sectors that closed in the green. On the flip side, pressure continued to build on Nifty Pharma, followed by auto, media, banks, FMCG, and Nifty Metal closed largely on the flat line. So that's what the trading session looked like yesterday. Now, when we interacted with our experts on the closing session, the closing show yesterday, here are some technical levels to watch out for what they've recommended. Our expert Sharan said that Nifty can be expected to see a breakout at 26,500. Nifty is on the verge of a breakout, and he believes that Nifty Bank will continue to be stronger versus the Nifty, and for Nifty Bank we can see an open at 57,500. Kunal Bothra, our other technical expert, he said that he's expecting to see a new swing high for the Nifty anywhere between 25,650 and 25,700. So those are the key levels to watch out for, keeping in mind the kind of trading session that we've had yesterday.
So those are some of the important levels that you need to keep an eye out on, and it was an absolutely flat session yesterday with Nifty ending near that 25,520 mark. But to understand how today's trading session could look like and what is the global macro setup looking like, we are now joined by Steve Englander, Standard Chartered Bank Global Head G10 Foreign Research. Sir, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us here on ET Now. First up, how do you read the latest developments and comments that have come in from US President Donald Trump on imposition of tariffs on pharma and copper? This is just a proposal as of now. Do you think this could translate into something concrete, and what will the impact be on global markets? Should we brace up for heightened volatility over the next few days?
Well, I'm more optimistic that he'll come to some trade deals with some of the other trading partners that they have. Europe seems to be close. There seem to be a couple of others that are close, and I'd still lean towards the interpretation that the nastiness reflects the desire to put pressure and to push these frameworks past the finish line. I think that copper and pharma is a bit different because he sees a national security element in this, that, in case of some international geopolitical issue, he doesn't want to be cut off from antibiotics and heart medicines and all the stuff that everybody uses here. So there may be more to that, I think. In addition, I think that, the most popular drugs now are the weight loss drugs, and they're mostly imported from Europe. And I think he's questioning why that's the case. But I think near term, I'm more optimistic that we'll get past the 9th without there being a markets disaster, and that we will see some framework agreements go through, and it will be risk positive.
All right, so that's the view on tariffs. Hi, Steve. This is Kanishka also joining in. So I wanted to ask you, what's your take on the markets? Now, we have not seen very significant moves arising, as an impact of the tariff announcement that we have seen coming in this week. So do you think the markets are, sort of underpricing the long-term volatility that may arise due to these developments? Or do you see there is, like you said, you were optimistic about it. So what's driving this optimism? Is it, complacency due to confidence in earnings going forward?
Well, our earnings continue to be strong, and I'd say that the productivity numbers, which are often correlated with earnings, look as if they're going to be strong as well. So, I think that there is an element that the earnings numbers strong earnings numbers could have more persistence than, say, people thought 6 months ago or a year ago. I think on the optimism, he's gotten a lot of what he wants. And I think that if he can get his baseline tariffs and maybe a little bit more, that he'll be inclined to take that as a deal for now. But I do think that one issue, certainly that markets are dealing with, is one, there's the uncertainty about what he's going to do, but there's also uncertainty about how the market's going to react. In April, the dollar fell when yields went up and when equity prices went down. But if you've been tracking the dollar against other currencies over the last 2 months, the response has been the opposite. So I think the market, apart from not knowing what he's going to do, even if they did know, is genuinely confused about how markets will react. So I think we're going to go through a period of what you'd call price discovery, where investors are trying to figure out just what is the model in the market to gauge responses.
Understood. So that's as far as US dollar and its impact on global equity markets is concerned. But also wanted your thoughts on the commodity markets because of the kind of tariffs that we have seen over the last few days. In February, Donald Trump had proposed an investigation for imposing tariffs on copper, and now again 50% tariff has been imposed. What kind of impact will this have on the copper market? And apart from copper, even on steel and aluminium, tariffs have been imposed earlier over the last few months. What kind of impact will this have on the commodity market globally?
Well, I think what it does, it drives a wedge between onshore prices in the US, which are going to be much higher, and leads commodities exporters to divert their exports away from the US because they have to look at what they get net of the tariffs and divert it elsewhere. So it means probably cheaper copper in the rest of the world, but more expensive copper in the US. Exactly what the copper issue is in the US that seems to be so significant is unclear. But, it does look like that's, if you're a copper exporter, it's going to be tough going.
Okay, so that's the take on copper. But apart from that, Steve, if we look at other safe haven, other commodities like, the safe haven asset like gold, what is your take on diversification into these assets, given there is tariff uncertainty when it comes to specific sectors like pharma and, copper, as we just discussed?
Well, gold has been tracking the dollar pretty well. And, I wouldn't exaggerate the safe haven aspect. It is a safe haven, but I think now the uncertainty about asset markets, the volatility, the weakness in the dollar, except for the last day or two, I think that's helping support dollar. We actually have a forecast of gold going up to 4,000 by Q3 2026. So, we're kind of optimistic that the rally will continue.
So you expect the rally for the yellow metal to continue going forward. Steve, thanks so much for taking your time out and joining us here on ET Now and helping us understand how the global macro setup is looking like today morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Indian equity markets ended absolutely flat near that 25,520 mark in yesterday's trading session. But what is the FNO setup looking like? To discuss exactly that, Pulkit from our research team is now joining us. Pulkit, over to you.
Good morning, Ashesha. After yesterday's half an hour move, like the up move, the FNO market have changed a little bit. If we talk about the India VIX, the current value is 12.20, which is reduced from the earlier one, that is 12.56. If we talk about the put call ratio changes, for Nifty it is 0.94 and for Bank Nifty it is 0.98. Both are in the comfortable range, so no need to worry about it. If we talk about change in option interest for index futures, so it is around minus 0.7%, and the trend that was seen was a short covering. If we talk about most active options, for Nifty call it was 25,500 and for put it was 25,400, and the trend was call writing and the put writing. If we talk about highest option open interest, for put it was 25,400 and for call it was 26,000. For Bank Nifty part, the change in open interest for index future was around 3% and the trend was long build up. Let's move towards the highest option open interest. For both put and call, it was 56,000 only. So if we talk about the long positions, for FIA, the long position is around 28.7%. For DIAs, it is around 63.2%. And for retail, it is around 57.8%. So if we talk about the FNO securities that are in ban, so only one security is there, that is RBL Bank.
Okay, thank you, Pulkit, for getting us that FNO snapshot. But moving on, let's also shed some light on all the stocks that are expected to buzz in today's trade going forward. In fact, Abhishek, Sharad and Varun from our research team are joining us with a list of a whole host of stocks that are likely to buzz in today's trade. Now, Abhishek, several steel counters on your radar. Why are they making to your list?
Yes, Tata Steel has reported its Q1 updates. So volumes were down by 4% on a YY basis. The decline in volume was due to the plant shutdown activities due to the maintenance purpose. Street is largely building up a decline in the revenue for Q1 FY26, but healthy build-up is for EBITDA margin expansion. The EBITDA margin expansion is in expectation of improvement in its operating performance in European business and soft coking coal price. Stock is largely expected to remain range bound. Another steel company, JSW Steel, has also reported its production volume for Q1 FY26. The production volume has increased by 14% on a YOY basis, largely led by a 15% increase in its domestic production. Street is building up a healthy uptick in its operating performance, led by soft coking coal price and a rise in the volumes, directionally positive for JSW Steel.
So both Tata Steel and JSW Steel will be in focus on account of operational update for the quarter gone by. But on the back of latest announcements that have come in on tariff war front, pharma and the entire copper and allied sectors will be in focus. Sharad is now joining us with all those details. Sharad, over to you.
Well, pharma stocks would be in focus as Donald Trump has stated that he may impose 200% tariffs within a year as well. Of course, last trading session also the pharma sector had given a muted performance. Also, interestingly, the Trump administration has imposed a 50% import duty in copper, and of course in COMEX the prices jumped as high as 13%, the single largest day spike since 1989. Now what it means for the Indian stocks is that Hindustan Copper, Vedanta and even Hindalco might have a negative reaction to this. And interestingly, the cable wire stocks, they might take a beating today in trading session, as roughly 35 to 40% of the raw material costs come from copper, but there is of course a 2 to 3 months lag to it. Apart from this, also BL would be in focus. Indian Navy has signed an important contract with the company for the implementation of MDA project, which is positive for the company. And lastly, HCL Tech will also be in focus, as there is a positive reaction expected, as company has announced its Workday as its working partner, and they would be working towards the AI work.
All right, thank you, Sharad, for that list of stocks. But Varun, now coming to you, stocks from across sectors are on your list. LG Equipment, Dixon Technologies, they're all on your list. So what's driving the news flow here?
Well, so let me start with LG Equipment, because the stock was up with good volumes yesterday. So it was SBI Mutual Fund who have bought actually 18.12 lakh shares, that is around 0.57% equity in this company at the rate of 532 rupees per share. So keep an eye on LG Equipment today as well. Now it's Dixon Technology, because the company and Signify, they have formed a joint venture. The joint venture is named as Litanium, and that Litanium joint venture will actually carry the business as an original equipment manufacturer of lighting product and also accessories. So keep an eye on Dixon Technologies. Oil and gas stocks would be in focus today, because it is a ET Now news break that has been confirmed, and that is Petroleum Ministry has actually invited feedback and also suggestions on draft petroleum and natural gas rules, and also model revenue sharing contract, and also petroleum leases. So keep an eye on oil and gas stocks as well. Also keep an eye on Union Bank of India, because the company has given their provisional updates, quarter one updates, and they look impressive, because the overall global business is up by around 5%. The domestic deposit and the total global deposit, they are up by around 3.6%. But the biggest highlight is domestic retail advances. They are up by around 25.6% on a YOY basis, and also on a quarter basis, they are up by around 5.63%. But remember, the stock is actually trading around its 52-week high. So keep an eye on Union Bank of India as well.
So Varun, Sharad and Abhishek, thanks so much for taking your time out and joining us with all the list of stocks that will be in focus in today's trading session. But Snehi is again with us and she'll take us through all the cues that you need to keep an eye out on in today's trading session. Snehi, take it away.
Well, yes, lots of cues to watch out for. Keep a very close eye on the AMFI data and the SIP data that we'll be receiving for the month of June back home. So that's going to be one of the important triggers to watch out for. From the global front, you have FOMC minutes coming in from the US along with wholesale inventories number. And from China, you have the inflation print coming out in the form of PPI as well as CPI. But once again, shifting focus back home, Titagarh Rail will be in focus because the board is going to be meeting to mull fundraising tomorrow. So watch out for that counter. Emphasis will be trading ex-dividend, and tomorrow is going to be the last day to buy shares of Dr. Reddy's in case you wish to be eligible for their record date. In terms of annual general meetings, all eyes are going to be on Tata Communications, and in terms of other events, you have Samsung launch event that will be happening in New York City. All eyes are going to be on this tech event as well. So watch out for all of these cues. All of them are very important to track.
All of these events are very important to track. Snehi, thanks so much. But let's have a look at how Asian markets have opened this morning. Japanese market has started on a slightly negative note as we speak. Nikkei is now down 0.2%, or rather absolutely flat. 39,657 is where Nikkei 225 is currently trading. Korean market meanwhile have started on a positive note. Hang Seng is down 1%, 240 points gone on Hang Seng index. We have Shanghai, which has started absolutely flat. 3,500 is where the Shanghai index is currently trading, and ASX 200 has started on a slightly tepid note, down 0.3% as we speak. 30 points gone on this index. Nifty implied open is indicating a slightly negative start for the Indian markets. It's now down nearly 35 points as we speak. 25,578 is where it is currently trading. So Asian markets are largely mixed, and GIFT Nifty is indicating a slightly negative open for the Indian markets.
Right, a negative start for the Indian market is what we are penciling in, but it's time now to take a very short break. We'll be right back with more news and updates on the other side.
When the stakes are high and the answers are elusive, there's one voice unafraid to challenge.
Now, in the wake of the recent food safety and standard violations by the e-commerce platforms, the food regulator FSSAI has chaired an important meeting with e-commerce entities yesterday. Now, the meeting chaired by the CEO FSSAI had 70 representatives from leading e-commerce entities. Sameer Dikshit is here with all the details.
Recently, we have seen that the food regulator FSSAI team, they carried out surprise inspection at a couple of e-commerce entities, and they found a serious violation of the food safety norms at these e-commerce warehouses. And in the same wake, in the same line of development, the food regulator held a very important meeting with the e-commerce entity, and this meeting was attended by more than 70 representatives of various important e-commerce players. And in this meeting, CEO FSSAI has given very important directives that will help to ensure food safety and bring transparency in the system. So a couple of important directives that have been issued. The first one is that the licensee display has to be there. So for all the consumer receipts which will be given to the consumer, it will prominently display the FSSAI license or the registration number, whether it be in invoices or even in the cash memo. In addition to this, the app information. So the display of the app information that provides the Food Safety Connect app, this has to be there on all consumer-facing documents. The warehouse disclosure is another important aspect. So it has mentioned that comprehensive details of all the associated warehouses and even the storage facilities, it has to be disclosed on the FASPOS portal. So this portal is basically for the food safety training and related subject matter. And in this warehousing or the storage facility has to be, the details has to be submitted. Hygiene protocol adherence has to be done, and in the same light, the directives has been issued. Also, the expiry date visibility should be very prominently, in a very clear manner. The product expiry date should be visible to the consumer so that they can make the informed choice when it comes to the purchase of these food items. So these are a couple of very important directives that have been issued by the CEO of the food regulator, and now it is up to the e-commerce entities to ensure that these directives are followed properly and This will also help to establish the trust between the consumer and the e-commerce player, and also help to bring more transparency in the system.
Samir, thanks so much for joining us with all those details. But shifting focus then, and in a partial relief to the residents of Delhi, the Commission for Air Quality Management has now deferred its order of denying fuel to end-of-life vehicles till the 1st of November. The fuel ban, initially enforced in Delhi alone, will now be rolled out simultaneously in 5 other districts of National Capital Region. My colleague Nivedana is now joining us with more details on this. Nivedana, over to you.
After days of a backlash, Delhi's contentious fuel ban on older vehicles will now take effect from November 1st, 2025. And this is not in isolation, but simultaneously across 6 NCR districts. So that's a significant development, because after holding a key meet, the Commission for Air Quality Management revised its enforcement plan after the Delhi government, remember, had cited critical operation failures. This was by the Delhi Environment Minister Manjinder Singh Sirsa. But in response, the CAQM has now taken that particular enforcement by postponing it to November and made it uniform for Delhi, Gurugram, Faridabad, Ghaziabad, Noida and Sonipat as well. This is starting November 1st. Remember, ANPR-based surveillance will continue at fuel station, and only after that date will refueling be denied to end-of-life vehicles. The CAQM has also directed authorities to complete tech trial, staff training and rollout readiness across NCR by the deadline, considering this was flagged. But let's also tell you quickly that a Delhi High Court notice is pending on a petition by the Delhi Petrol Dealers Association challenging the legality of the directive. So concurrently, what happens in terms of that, it remains to be seen.
All right, so a partial relief coming for EOL vehicles in Delhi. But moving on, now Tamil Nadu has been a leader in the auto, EV and tech manufacturing. But now the state is looking at becoming a leader in seafood exports as well. Now, Tamil Nadu's Industry and Investment Promotion Minister TRB Raja says that the state is focusing on cold chain, processing, feedstock and hatchery infra. Let's listen in to an exclusive conversation.
For the longest time, we've been number one in automobile, EV, textiles, and all these other major sectors, including electronics. But the coast, the huge coast that Tamil Nadu is blessed with, almost 14 districts are, have huge coastline and untapped. Now that is something which we really want to correct, make use of the entire blue economy chain, and especially on the seafood front, because we do have a huge fishing community, amazing catch every single day, but the value addition has not happened. AP is doing a fantastic job in the seafood industry, but we want to beat all the number ones. So when in that sector too.
But Mr. Raja, the question is, what's the way to getting there really? Because I know for a fact that we've lagged behind, like you said, despite a 1,076 kilometer long coastline. What are the focus areas do you hope to add emphasis on in the hope to bridge that gap?
Yep, over 1,000 kilometers of coastline, but we don't have a good cold chain, right? We don't have good processing units to ensure that the produce is fresh and it goes out to the tables as soon as possible. So we're trying to get the best of cold chain done. We're trying to get the best of processing units done. Of course, the feedstock needs to be really good. Seed hatcheries need to be really good. So we're trying to beef up all the infrastructure that goes into making a fantastic seafood ecosystem.
Cold storage units, cold chain units, food processing and shipbuilding as well is something that there's been a lot of focus and emphasis on insofar as boosting infrastructure. How many companies are you in talks with at present? Is it too premature to ask you for a number?
I thought you're from media at times. I don't know if you're from the other states.
I'm just curious, sir. Have you already initiated conversations?
Yeah. Lots of conversations, a lot of very positive conversations. Any investor, anybody in any sector would definitely listen into what Tamil Nadu has to say, because we have a proven track record of being number one and giving out the correct kind of quality that the world needs today, right? So I think Tamil Nadu is the one state which can actually deliver on time and with top-notch global quality, and that's why we're playing that game.
And let's shift focus to some national stories then. And in a special ceremony in Brasilia, Brazilian President Lula conferred the country's highest civilian award, the Grand Collar of the National Order of the Southern Cross, on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The honor recognizes PM Modi's role in deepening India-Brazil relations.
Over 25 crore workers in sectors including banking, insurance, postal mining, construction, among others, are likely to participate in a nationwide Bharat Bund today. The Bharat Bund has been called by the trade unions across the country in order to protest against the centre's anti-worker, anti-farmer and anti-national pro-corporate policies, as they call it.
And with the state assembly elections just months away, statewide Bund has been called by opposition parties over the ongoing special intensive revision of electoral rolls, new labour code and deteriorating law and order situation in Bihar. Meanwhile, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi will also visit Patna today to join Bihar Bund protests.
A cloudburst followed by heavy rains triggered flash floods in Jammu and Kashmir's Anantnag district. Water entered several residential homes, but fortunately, no loss of life has been reported so far.
And Trump is on a tariff spree this time. He's targeting copper. And during a cabinet meeting, U.S. President Donald Trump announced a hefty 50% tariff on copper imports, signaling more sector-specific crackdowns ahead. He even hinted at steeper tariffs of up to 200% on pharmaceutical imports that could be coming anytime soon. This copper move follows earlier hikes on steel and aluminium tariffs and forms a part of a broader, aggressive protectionist push to kick in, which is likely to kick in by August. But remember, this is likely to have an impact on several consuming sectors as well. And as I mentioned, US President Donald Trump has started an investigation in the month of February this year. And now this final announcement has been proposed where he says that he is proposing 50% tariffs on copper, which is likely to come into effect from the end of July or from the beginning of August. But as I mentioned, it is likely to have an impact on several sectors. First up, let's talk about the companies which are in copper manufacturing or copper production. The likes of Hindustan Copper and Vedanta are likely to be negatively impacted, and this is because all the supply that was earlier going to United States will now supply to other countries, which means supply for countries including India is likely to inch higher, which will indirectly put pressure on prices. And that is precisely the reason copper prices on London Metal Exchange today morning have fallen, and this will likely have a negative impact on players like Hindustan Copper and Vedanta as well. But on the flip side, several industries and companies use copper as their raw material, something like wires and cables business. They are also used in data center power consumption. So many of these consuming sectors are likely to be positively impacted on account of fall in copper prices in India. So yes, a tariff that has been proposed by US President Donald Trump is likely to have impact across sectors, not only the companies that are into manufacturing and production of copper and copper products, but also into companies that use copper as their raw material.
All right, so that's about copper. But apart from that, 10% tariffs against BRICS allies will be coming soon. That's the word coming from Trump during a meeting. Now, he also added that the group will not be able to push for de-dollarization, and if they do, they'll be subjected to heavy penalties. Let's listen in.
That's right, they have to pay 10% if they're in BRICS, because BRICS was set up to hurt us. BRICS was set up to degenerate our dollar and take our dollar as the standard, take it off as the standard. And that's okay if they want to play that game, but I can play that game too. So anybody that's in BRICS is getting a 10% charge.
Is that immediate, sir? Or is
Yeah,
that
pretty
if
soon.
they engage in some behavior?
Well, if they're a member of BRICS, they're going to have to pay 10% tariff, just for that one thing. And they won't be a member long. You ever hear the expression, dollar is king? The dollar is king. We're going to keep it that way, okay? I'm just saying, if people want to challenge it, they can, but they're going to have to pay a big price. And I don't think any of them are willing to pay that.
All right, Shinjay Chaudhary, my colleague, is also joining us with a perspective on how these threats could actually play out and if India will be at the receiving end. Let's listen into what he has to say.
Yeah. First, India is doing a trade deal with America, and that could happen before the 1st of August. But India is also a member of the BRICS. So, does Donald Trump see the trade deal as the big one, or does he see India's membership in BRICS as the big one? These are two separate issues. So, India believes that whether India is part of BRICS or SCO or any organization, a trade deal is a bilateral thing, and that's particularly important. So regardless of where India is, America has to look at the trade deal and how America sees a trade deal with India independent of everything else. Shouldn't that be the case?
In fact, let's also go across and listen into what US President Donald Trump had to say on the proposed 200% tariff on pharmaceutical products. Let's listen in.
We'll be announcing something very soon on pharmaceuticals. We're going to give people about a year and a half to come in, and after that they're going to be tariffed if they have to bring the pharmaceuticals into the country, the drugs and other things into the country. They're going to be tariffed at a very, very high rate, like 200%. We'll give them a certain period of time to get their act together. But they were all here, now they all left. They went to other places because we allowed, people that sat in this room allowed it to happen. And I don't allow it to happen. The people in this room don't allow it to happen. So we're going to be announcing pharmaceuticals, chips, and various couple of other things, big ones. We did steel, as you know, they're 50%. We did aluminum, 50%. Lumber just came out.
Why don't you announce copper?
And we did cars. And now, today we're doing copper.
Copper and lumber. What would that tariff be on? The sexual tariff?
I believe the tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%.
All right, so that's the word coming from Trump on the proposed 200% tariff on pharma. But moving on, also get you some more global updates. Now, Trump is also continuing his rhetoric against Jerome Powell. Says he's always late, even as he touts that everything in the economy is evening out, and adds that money from fresh tariffs will start pouring in from August. During the meeting, he also slammed Putin for killing a lot of people, including American soldiers. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is cashing in again. A new filing shows that Bezos sold nearly 3 million Amazon shares worth about $666 million over 2 days in July. This is part of his plan to offload up to 25 million shares by mid-2026. The billionaire recently sold $737 million worth of stocks in June, even as he retains over 900 million shares, still making him Amazon's largest shareholder.
Former UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is heading back to Wall Street, rejoining Goldman Sachs as a senior advisor. Sunak, who resigned as Conservative Party leader after a crushing 2024 election defeat, will offer global macro and geopolitical advice, but will tight restrictions to avoid conflicts with his time in office. His pay from Goldman Sachs will go to his charity, the Richmond Project. Sunak, who started his career at Goldman Sachs in early 2000s, remains a sitting MP. While regulators flagged risks of unfair access, Sunak is barred from certain policy-related advice for now. Tragedy deepens in Texas as the death toll from the devastating July 4th flash floods climbs to at least 109, with many victims being children. More than 180 people remain missing as emergency crews wade through debris in hard-hit Kerr County and beyond. The governor has warned that the toll could rise further as waters recede and search efforts intensify. The catastrophe marks one of the deadliest U.S. floods in decades, sparking outrage over preparedness and calls for urgent safety reforms.
This is one Swiss approval for Coetum Baby, the world's first malaria treatment designed specifically for newborns and very young children. The dissolvable cherry-flavored formula can even be mixed with milk, making it easier to administer to infants under 4.5 kg who were previously left without approved options. 8 African nations that participated in the assessment are expected to fast-track their own approvals. Elon Musk's X, formerly Twitter, is saying the Indian government ordered it to block over 2,300 accounts in India, including major news outlets like Reuters, sparking fresh censorship concerns. The ministry has demanded immediate takedown, and I quote, within an hour without explanation, according to X. Screenshots showed Reuters accounts labeled withheld in India before they were restored a day later. This clashes the latest in X's mega battle with the government.
And on that note, we need to slip into a very short break, but more news and updates will continue on the other side. Don't go anywhere.